guys, it's Mike, and welcome to the latest edition of the Startoon Cartoon Podcast. Today we are going to answer the question, who is Wildseed? Here at Startoon, we are backed by both the Shaw Rocket Fund and Wildseed Studios out of the UK. We get this question a lot as far as who these guys are, who came up with this idea, what do they do, and we're going to do our best to answer that today. We are talking to Jesse Cleverly, the creative director at Wildseed, and Miles Bulla, who is the executive producer over there. We're going to talk to them about their individual backgrounds, what they were doing and what led them to this place where they got together and formed Wildseed Studios. We're going to find out what Wildseed does and how that ties into what Startoon's all about. And then a little bit about even how the whole Startoon thing even happened. How did a company from the UK get involved with the Shaw Rocket Fund and end up doing this here in Canada? So we were lucky enough to have Miles here in the studio earlier in the season, and we got Jesse via Skype. So we're going to hack all that together and try to tell you a clear, concise story about how this all came to be. Enjoy.
So Wildseed Studios was formed as a company to try and kind of set up shop so that we could identify really brilliant emerging creative talent and give them the three things we think they need. So that is training, creative advice, which is the bit of it that I do. So creative mentorship, strategic advice. So that's how do you make your ideas into brands? How do you monetize those brands? How do you, moving forward? And thirdly, money. So we do what venture capital does with tech startups, and we make multiple small investments into piloting new scripted IP with often emerging, but not only emerging creators.
We give them some money to help them do what they need to do. We make initial investments of up to £10,000, so about $17,000, and we try and help them to get out into the big wide world and make something professional or more professional looking.
And we then take the results of that work, those resulting pilots, and try and sell them and from partnerships with, premium platforms, whatever that means. So that would be, in Canada, the Teletoons, obviously, and the YTVs and the family channels, but also the Amazons and the Netflixes and the many, many more channels and platforms that are launching seemingly monthly at the moment.
So what kind of projects have you guys done to date?
So we've done about 30 projects to date, and I guess about a third of them are kids animation projects. It's all scripted entertainment, so we don't do any reality shows. We don't do factual. We just do scripted entertainment. So kids 6 to 11. We do adult comedy, and we do genre fiction, so sci-fi, fantasy, horror. And mainly in sci-fi, fantasy and horror, we make these kind of ridiculous, punky feature films. Our latest one is called The Darkest Dawn, and we made it for under £50,000, and it's got YouTubers in it and 200 special effects shots.
But so the animation stuff, though,
yes.
Like what would we have seen?
So the main show that we've produced is called Counterfeit Cat, and in Canada that's on Teletoon and YTV, and that's a classic 6 to 11-year-old comedy. Again, we're working with Disney, so it's kind of much more of a traditional setup than some of the other stuff we did. But we did work with a first-time director. I mean, he was a very experienced storyboard artist and had directed some bits and pieces before. But this was the first time he'd done a 52 times 11-minute series. For us, that was terrific. That's kind of what we're about, really, is trying to give people their big break, or their next break, if you like.
If you look at the show we're making for Disney at the moment, actually just finished now, for Disney, called Counterfeit Cat, the lead character there is this sort of neurotic, boastful house cat, agoraphobic house cat. And you kind of feel like the entire world of that show is sort of a projection of his psyche. Of course it's not, because that would be weird. But you end up with this thing that feels very sort of coherent and very sort of tied into that character and who they are, as opposed to what happens the other way, I think, which is you end up with a kind of character here and a world sort of happening to them, which for us is a far less involving, emotionally, experience.
But I always loved the project. I always thought it was a really, really good idea at the heart of it, which is that you have a spoilt, indoor, prissy cat whose life is turned upside down by the arrival of an Arctic alien. And so it's a kind of buddy story. And at the heart of every idea that Wildseed likes to pursue, we want to see great characters. We're less interested, initially at least, in the kind of world and backstory and the setup and the high concept. We're much more interested in, are there characters at the heart of a show that an audience wants to be or be with? That's our kind of first question.
It's just now the technology has moved on to the point where, you know, so much of the TV and film business is predicated on limited access to the means of production and distribution. That is no longer the case. Everybody has access to the means of production and distribution. So then the question becomes, how do you get to the best idea? You know, once those barriers have been removed, and that's really exciting. And when, you know, in any moment, I mean, this will date me horribly, but you know, I grew up in the early 80s and went to university as house music here. And that, you know, what happened was a bunch of kids on housing estates in Manchester could suddenly afford the computer you could make an EDM record on. And all of the early 80s, horrible manufactured bands made up by the marketing departments of record companies, overnight, there was a mass cull of that cynical mediocrity. And it was replaced by something so vibrant and unstoppable and absurdly exciting to all of us, you know, because a new constituency of people had been given a piece of creative technology and a whole new bunch of voices were enabled in that instant. And the same has happened now in video. And I think it's our job at Wildseed to be the kind of sponsors of that, so that those new voices in this new space get what they need, which is, in our view, mentorship and investment to become the stars of tomorrow.
So the way we find ideas at Wildseed is we have a website and we have a completely open submissions process. So there are no prerequisites for qualifications or representation or experience or anything. Anyone can submit an idea to us. So we've had over 3,000 ideas submitted to us in 4 years, and we've given personalised feedback to every single one of them.
How do you do that?
We do it. I mean, when I say personalised, I mean it will be a paragraph. So we don't do an essay for every submission, and some of them the feedback is, you do realise we don't do preschool, for example, or we don't do documentaries. But we always try and give constructive feedback on everyone who's...
Is there just someone on staff who does that all the time?
There is at the moment, yeah. She's called Joanna and she works very hard. But Jesse actually looks at all the submissions as well. So she filters them. So the ones that are obviously just wrong, she will weed out. Sarah, our creative producer, our head of kids, she looks at the kids' submissions. And Jesse looks at all the comedy and the genre fiction submissions, and together with Joe, they give feedback. So, yes, we live online. We have a submissions portal online. We do all our outreach online. We also do a lot of talks and a bit of press and PR, and we go to festivals and we go to conferences and talk. So, yes, so we're trying to be children of the 21st century.
It is our view that often the really exciting talent is in a studio, for example, are kind of, I'm making this up, but 25 and storyboarding. And the problem that those people have is that they feel a really long way away from being able to produce a Bible and the documentation and the material that they sort of know you need to produce to pitch a show, right? So they've got this brilliant idea, but they feel a million miles away from being able to pitch that idea or formulate that idea into a pitch or whatever. So we wanted to create a program that would kind of access that talent layer directly and access their ideas directly and unfiltered, because we believe that the next great idea will come from one of those people, and not from a group of people like me or indeed you, seasoned development executives with ideas, have kind of become very much the creative, in a lot of cases, the sort of creative engine of the kids business. And, as much as it pains me to say this, because obviously we're all geniuses, right? I actually think that that is a really dangerous thing.
Yeah.
Because what you end up doing is designing products, in order to address certain opportunities and markets. And what you end up with then is a bunch of products and a bunch of, things that feel like they've been designed to work. And we saw this in the theatre the whole time.
I mean, I think... we really, the whole essence of what Wildseed does is to focus on creator-driven shows. So it's very easy, and it's an accusation that's often levelled at Canadian studios, but actually it happens in the UK as well and happens everywhere, that what you can get is a kind of studio or committee-driven show, where you end up producing a budget rather than producing a creative vision. Mm-hmm. And there was a point where we just basically gave Ben and Sarah the freedom to make the show that they wanted to make. And obviously it had to be made within the budget, and it had to be made to the schedule that we'd set. So there were limitations, but actually as executives, Jesse Cleverly and myself and our Canadian executive producers, Frank Saperstein in particular, we stepped back and we were there to help when required, but we actually just let them make the show that they wanted to make. And it takes a while to build that level of trust, but once you've built it, it's like, why give people notes after note after note when actually you've hired them to execute their vision, and you want to let them get on and do it. And I think that's really the main philosophical approach that you have to take if you want to get something that feels fresh and original and doesn't just look like a kind of studio created show. That people say a camel is a horse created by committee, and that's what a lot of animation shows can look like if you're not careful. Co-productions especially.
And I think the thing that for us has become the defining factor in all this is a brilliant character. So we believe that at the heart of every franchise that goes on to be enormous, there is a character or a group of characters who the audience absolutely want to be or be with. And we get a lot of ideas from younger creators, less experienced creators, and some more experienced creators, where you feel that you are in the presence of somebody who has got very excited, often very bright people who've got very excited about a concept. Mm-hmm. So you get these very sort of complex and in many cases intriguing scenarios, and but you look and you look and you look and you kind of can't find that character at the center of the idea who is who you really believe will be that person the audience kind of come to, and what you end up with as a result of that is kind of things that feel very plot driven, where you feel like the writer or the creator was more interested in the scenario or the philosophical implications of the scenario or to the cleverness of the scenario than they were so their starting point was the scenario rather than a character whose journey they were desperate to try. And so I think for us in designing Startoon, it was really about trying to go, okay, how do we create a program or a system or a kind of process which from the very beginning encourages creators to think of their ideas from the point of view of a character who they love from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Because our view is that if you build a character show around a character from the very beginning, then what you end up with is what you want, which is a show where you sort of feel like the whole universe is being channeled through that character and is almost a projection of that character.
So Startoon really is like a very focused reflection of what Wildseed is, but just aimed in this very specific direction.
That is correct. So it's Jesse Cleverly's concept, which is that why don't we take the essence of what Wildseed is about and distill it down into a single concept for kids 6 to 11, which is let's have a talent show, which is all about characters, and let's see if we can use the talent show format to discover the next go-to character in kids animation 6 to 11. So we have auditions and we have challenge rounds and we have a finale and a winner. And the winner wins a $25,000 development budget to make something at the end of the process, whether it's a short or an animatic or script or whatever. But the twist is that all the contestants of this talent show are animated characters created by different creators. And to us, it was just a really neat, entertaining way of doing development, but not paper development with characters up on their feet, being animated with voices, and in a way that was engaging for the audience to see, and we could also get a little bit of feedback from the audience to see which characters were resonating with the audience, and which ones therefore we should think about helping more, or the ones that weren't resonating, see if we could help creators figure out why they weren't resonating.
For us, it's absolutely about going, no, let's go to the creator, let's back the creator's vision, because we believe, particularly if we can pilot it and bring it forward, that is the only way to get to the next, why is it always the Simpsons? But the next Simpsons, right?
Yeah.
Is that you have to back a creator's vision, and you have to, hold at bay all the forces of conservatism and fear to try and get that product out in its purest form, because that's the thing that will work, in our view.
So you've got this idea. You guys are over in the UK.
Yes.
How did it end up in Canada?
Well, we were talking to people at various markets. So we go to Cannes twice a year, to MIP and MIPCOM. We go to Kids Screen. We go to the Cartoon Forum in Europe, and we meet a lot of the kids business is like a huge family. It's people we know very well, and Jessie, my business partner, was at one of these events, and Agnes Agnes Augustin from the Rocket Fund was at one of them, and he was telling her about it, not imagining for a moment that actually it was something that she would be interested in, because up to that point, the Shaw's business model was to invest in the deficit finance animation series. And Agnes said, but that sounds perfect for what we're trying to do. And so the Rocket Fund, Shaw Rocket Fund, were the first people who wanted to come in and partner on the show. So we literally partnered with them. So we are now 50-50 joint venture partners with the Shaw Rocket Fund on Startoon. And I have to say they've been an absolutely fantastic partner. They've got exactly the right amount of interest in the creative side, which is not too much, but not too little either. They're very, very helpful on the business side, and very, very supportive of everything that we're trying to do.
So the way that Startoon came together was, we wanted to apply the whole Wildseed philosophy to the one problem of where is the next breakout kids cartoon character going to come from, right? So we wanted to create a program which would focus down on, character first, piloting, all the rest of it.
So that eternal question, where's the next SpongeBob? We want the next SpongeBob. That keeps being asked all the time.
SpongeBob? Where's the next great character? Not the great concept, but the great character that's really going to carry a franchise across multiple seasons. And how are we going to do that in such a way that, we can also, in a digital way, involve the audience and the wisdom of the crowd and understand how the audience are responding to things. So that was when we kind of went, okay, well, it should be a character-based competition, but to the kids, it should look like a talent show. And I have known Agnes Augustin at the show and admire her greatly, I should say, also, before she decided to back my project. And so Agnes and I were talking about the state of the business and what the challenges were, and I was talking to her and said, well, we have got this thing called Startoon, and it was one of those great moments where, Agnes, I think, had been asked and had been thinking already about, Shaw's role in, obviously Shaw is this God, I wish we had Shaw in the UK, because it is an organisation entirely there, the Shaw Rocket Fund, entirely there to fuel the creativity of the Canadian kids business. It's like extraordinary thing. It's extraordinary. And I think that obviously if you're in an organisation like that, then, you have a duty to be innovating and moving, ahead of the curve and helping your community understand the challenges and the opportunities of the coming world rather than operate in the old one. And I think that Agnes and the board of Shaw Rocket Fund had been looking for something innovative, which would access talent in a different way, and Startoon was a good fit.
Yeah. The nice thing there is that we did get a result last year. You talked to me a lot about envisioning the person, the project, whatever it is. And with Sonny and Bentley,
yes,
our winner last year,
yes, you
described to me who you thought this person would be.
We imagined that we'd find someone who, was working at a studio, but had graduated a couple of years ago, and was kind of yet to really find their voice or break through in terms of their own work. And we spotted out, Andy Greeling and Sonny and Bentley you could spot it right from the audition phase. It was a judge's favourite, and an audience favourite from really, really early on. But no, Andy fits that. He fits that description exactly. He's a creator with a vision. He's definitely someone I think we feel and he feels was going to benefit from a bit of mentorship in terms of how to create characters and how to build a concept that's going to be interesting to broadcasters, whether they're video on demand broadcasters or television broadcasters. And and some money to be able to, for him to be able to sort of take some time out and actually really focus on developing this thing properly.
We're all saying that the first round of Startoon was a success. We've come out of it with Sonny and Bentley. There were a number of other really fantastic projects that developed over the course of it, and there may be more to see from those.
But one of the really gratifying things for me was going to Ottawa to the festival, and hearing how much the creators had enjoyed being involved in the process and how rewarding they'd found it. And to me, that was a win. That was a big win to hear the creative community in Canada feedback that it was a process that they had found rewarding.
And I was a precocious only child and the product of a horrible sort of messy situation, so everyone thought I was fantastic. Hence the narcissistic nightmare you see before you today. So this narcissistic, spoiled nightmare then went out into the world and did English at uni, English literature, and did lots of acting, and for a brief moment thought I wanted to be an actor. Until I got a really terrible review at the Edinburgh Festival and felt so depressed and crushed that thank God I realised that I could never be an actor. Thank God. So I decided not to be an actor, and then went and worked in theatres for about 5 or 6 years, 7 years, and really wanted to be a director but couldn't afford to not earn any money, so did marketing and publicity for people. So I did that for quite a long time and ended up in the way that you do, sort of being promoted away from the thing that I really love doing. So I ended up at the kids department being head of co-production and acquisition, which meant I was buying and setting up co-productions for all the international stuff for the kids BBC and for the older audience. And it was actually, even though it ended up being too far away from development and production for me to stay, it was where I learned about the international business and animation and how international co-productions work, and about other places outside the BBC, frankly.
Was there an interest place for cartoons for you early on, and then you ended up back here, or how did that kind of shape up for you?
So really interesting, because I started my career in live action. The first thing I did as an assistant was an arts program for Channel 4 in the UK. And I was doing live action, mostly comedy, some drama, for the first 10 years of my career. And then I was managing director of a comedy production company in the UK, and I suddenly saw a film called Fantastic Person by Candy Gard, which it's an old film now, and it blew my mind. I just thought, this is brilliantly funny. It's very true. And what I loved about the animation thing then, and still do actually, is the amount of control you can have over timing and the comedy. That if you get it right, you can time things to perfection. And then shortly after that, I saw The Wrong Trousers by Nick Park, which is possibly one of the greatest, examples of that phenomenon, with the chase and the train set. And I just thought, this is fun. I want to do this. And so I said this to the guys that I was working with at the live action production company, and one of them said, "Oh, that sounds like fun. Let's think about this." And he hadn't done any animation before, and that guy was called Carl Gorham. And he came in with a script and said, I've written this script, I think it might be animation. And we looked at it, and it was called Stressed Eric, and it was the first adult animated sitcom, British adult animated sitcom in the UK. And we did 13 half-hour episodes, and it's kind of lived on as in a fond memory for everyone. It didn't really travel. It was very British, and quite dark. But from then on, I had the bug, and then when I saw the job advertised at Aardman to be head of broadcast at Aardman, I thought, you've got to do that. If you're interested in animation, that's a job you have to have a go at. And luckily, they gave me 9 years at it.
Nice. For the sake of full clarity, maybe, certainly I know who Aardman is.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell tell our viewers.
Absolutely. So Aardman are the producers of Wallace and Gromit, probably most famously, but probably most popularly at the moment, Shaun the Sheep. They've been going 40 years. In the UK, they're they're an institution basically in the UK, and an absolutely fantastic company that I really, really enjoyed working for.
You know, it slightly feels like being in a broadcaster at the moment is a bit like being on the balcony of the Palace of Versailles during the French Revolution. In that, you know, nice cake.
Yep.
But over there on the street, they are reinventing thought and every system, and you know, radical things are being created and invented and prototyped and discovered as a result of all that activity. And being in a big broadcaster that by definition is very wedded to linear broadcast and a piece of technology and a method of delivering content, just didn't feel like the place to be, you know. And although it's definitely been, you know, a ride in terms of, you know, a mortgage and 3 kids and all that, I kind of had to leave and do this. So that's what I did.
How did you guys come together? How did you form?
So Jesse and I met each other whilst he was at the BBC and I was at Aardman, and he was actually my buyer for Shaun the Sheep, and we got on really, really well, and we said we must do something together one day, and after a fantastic run at Aardman, I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to set up something for myself, and I knew I wanted a partner to do that with. So the day after I left, I phoned up Jesse, who I knew had left the BBC, and I said, let's do something together, and he said, absolutely, let's do that. So that's kind of how we got together.
You know, and I think that, you know, I was Miles's buyer, and, you know, he thought my jokes were funny, and, you know, and all the rest, and took my calls. And, you know, and then you leave a job like that, and, you know, it's interesting because, you know, some people stay with you and are revealed to have been actually, you know, a proper colleague and friend, and others drift away, and it's not always the people that you thought it would be. But Miles and I remained very, you know, very tight. And I think because at that point, of course, I was out there going, I want to innovate, I want to invent new forms, new platforms, new technology. I am, you know, putting my flag in the sand. This is going to be about the where this is heading.
Jesse is the creative director. He is a huge, I can say this because he's not here, but he's a hugely, hugely talented development executive who really, really has a profound understanding of scripts and character, and has really, really great insights into how that process works. So Jesse's really, really focused on the creative. And then my background really is, I'm an executive producer, really, a non-writing executive producer. So my role in life is to find great projects, find the money to get them financed and put the teams together to finance them. Then I hand it over to a creative team who executes the vision, and then they phone me when it's finished. Not quite, but they phone me when it's finished and say, and then I have to sell it. So if what I haven't sold already has to be sold when it's finished. That's the kind of way we divide the work.
I mean, when I left the BBC initially, I thought, all right, I'm starting a business, and I didn't know, you know, anything other than that I had to try and do it. But I immediately was like, oh God, I can't do this on my own. I need a business partner. And, you know, frankly, it then took me 5 years to find that person, because, you know, you got to be complementary skills. So I don't think I'm the business person in our relationship, and Miles doesn't think he's the creative person. I mean, I want to hear his creative views, and he wants to hear my views on strategy, but in the end, when it comes down to it, we are not in competition with each other at a sort of fundamental level. Mm-hmm. So you have to be equally senior, right? You have to have equal sort of levels of experience, and I guess within the industry profile, and I guess, you know, it's one thing, you have to be complementary, not in competition. You know, and you have to both see the and particularly at the moment, this is hard, like see the future the same way, because, right, who knows, right? You have to have a similar view of what your strategy would be to exploit the opportunities, minimize the threats. You know, these are really complicated things to get aligned, you know. So, yeah, so that, and then, you know, and then actually really what you want to know is, do people stay nice when it goes wrong? Because if you know someone stays nice, you know, when the shit starts, that is huge, because the shit always starts. By the way, like it's going to happen. repeatedly over the course of the company's life. And you have to just know that you're working with someone who is not going to start blaming and pointing fingers and lying and hiding and exploding and shouting and all the stuff people do under pressure when they're afraid. You just have to know that you can rely on that person to kind of, I mean, I won't go into details, but, there was a period where we were in, it was very, very, very tough. Not for reasons that we could really control, but certainly for reasons that had the power to crush us into dust. And you just have to, in that situation, you just have to keep getting up. That's all really. You just have to keep getting up, I mean, whether or not you feel you've been knocked down or, you've been lying in your bed asleep, you just have to get up, and history belongs to the people to the people who got up one more time than everyone else. That's all. So, and I think this is true of creators, it's like, you haven't got time, to feel bad when people don't fall at your feet and tell you how brilliant you are. Just get up and do something else.
Where can we find you guys online?
So wildseedstudios.com is our website, and Wildseed, you'll find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
Big thank you to Jesse, big thank you to Miles for taking the time to actually explain all this. I know I get a little into how they got to be and the choices they made and how they can't end up coming together. But that's the kind of stuff I think is really interesting, and I hope you guys do too. So a big thank you to them. If you want to check out more from Wildseed, because they do some really exciting work, wildseedstudios.com. But yeah, thank you to those guys, and we will talk to you guys real soon.